opulent and
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Crust, and today we're gonna be doing something mayhaps different, mayhaps special, mayhaps fun. Today we're gonna play one of my personal favorite games, which is Darkest Dungeon. As you may see from the stream description, the version of the Darkest Dungeon that we're going to be playing today is modded. Here you can see my save file, which will actually be restarting because today we're going to start a fresh save file. Before we proceed with said task, I do want to disclose the mods that I'm going to be using, just in case there's any confusion of, hey, why do things look different from, I don't know, the game store page or whatnot. That is because the Darkest Dungeon is mod friendly. On Steam, it has Steam Workshop support, which is the way I've modded my version of the game. As you can see right here, first of all, I have all the DLC, which includes several expansions, as well as I have mods installed. We'll see those in a moment. I do want to mention that I've actually never beaten the base game of the Darkest Dungeon, and that is mostly due to the fact that I like to play this game in between playing other games, if that makes any sense. Essentially, I really like the gameplay loop of the Darkest Dungeons, so whenever I'm waiting for a new game release or I don't really have anything else to do, I would just boot up this game and give it a whirl. So let's just confirm right here all the DLC that I have installed. That includes the Butcher's Circus, which, for those of you who do not know, it's essentially a PvP arena. We most likely will not be engaging with it, but it's there. We have 3 classes, which are the Musketeer, the Flagellant, and the Shieldbreaker, all of which will be spawning within our roster rotation. And then we also have the districts, which is essentially like a gameplay element where we can further upgrade our home base. And to finalize, we have the 2 story expansions, which includes the Crimson Court and the Color of Madness. So there's a likely chance I will not be engaging with us immediately, but rather until we beat the game proper. Then, to further, we're gonna disclose the mods that we're using. As a first general overview, most of these are class mods. Those are my favorite mods for this game. Introducing new classes, which introduce their own mechanics, which I find completely just very interesting, and all of these are very unique and introduce something that's different for the way we play the game. Other mods would include an invasion system, meaning which is repurposed from the game proper. This is a thing that can happen in the game, but it happens not very often, and this makes it a more integral mechanic. Among classes, we have just some visual overhauls to icons to better display information. As you can see, these do not change gameplay, they're purely visual for us to have just an easier time digesting the information that the game is trying to tell us. Before we cover this, I do want to cover the rest of the mods. Just information extension, speeding up certain animations, essentially just quality of life improvements. Actually, did not have that one enabled. That's also just a visual mod. Another one of the mods that I do want to mention that do drastically change how the game would normally play would be a larger roster mod. Essentially, there's a cap on how many characters we can have, and in vanilla Darkest Dungeon, that is perfectly balanced around the amount of vanilla classes that there are. Since we are adding a hefty amount of new classes, that vanilla limit essentially prevents us from properly forming cohesive team rosters. So I've installed this precisely to tackle that issue. And the other one, the only mod I would actually consider or think that others may consider problematic would be this one, level restriction removal. Essentially, in vanilla Darkest Dungeons, our characters possess a level, and the dungeons themselves also possess a level. So when you try to send a character into a dungeon, the character themselves would react to the level of the dungeon before you even started by saying either this is too hard, it would be suicide, and they refuse to go into the mission, or alternatively, this is too easy, I do not want to go back to that, I seek for greater challenge. What this mod does is it removes the mechanic. The purpose of the mechanic itself is essentially to be smarter with your resources on how you manage your character levels based on the dungeons. The problem that I found with that mechanic personally is that the dungeons that you are allowed to play are randomized. So you could reach a point where, say, all of your characters die, so you need to recruit brand new ones. But all the dungeons are now like higher level because your cap of like level of your original characters was higher. So now you find yourself in a situation where you're just in a perpetual death loop because your original characters are dead, and now you cannot bring your new characters up to speed because the available levels are too hard. So in practice, I'm certain better players would be able to manage that with ease. I unfortunately am not that good. And I would see that most people under my position, the solution would be to simply restart their profile. And I don't like that idea. So that is mostly what this specific mod is for. Its positives, it means we can keep doing lower levels because they'll never essentially go away. The negatives are that allows us to sort of power creep and like farm a lot of resources with low risk, because we can just keep going through easier dungeons to build up our roster. If you have a personal problem with that, then you're within your right, but this is the way I've played and seen that I enjoyed it. So with all of that information, as mentioned, we're going to be starting a brand new save file. We're going to go ahead and delete my old save file. And we are going to essentially commence. Yep, let's start campaign. So we're going to be playing on normal. And we're going to name our state. A little name that I picked for my town proper. There we go. We also have to ensure we enable all the mods, because otherwise it will be as if we were just playing vanilla. This is a cool thing that this game allows you to do. It allows you to individually select the mods for each save file. So if you want to have like a fundamentally different experience, which there are mods that completely rebalance the game, you can have an exclusive save file for that, which is pretty cool. But without further ado, we're absolutely trying to not get haunted or eaten or ravaged by any form of undead or unholy creature.
You will arrive along the old road. It winds with a troubling, serpent-like suggestion through the corrupted countryside, leading only, I fear, to ever more tenebrous places. There is a sickness in the ancient pitted cobbles of the old road, and on its writhing path you will face viciousness, violence, and perhaps other damnably transcendent terrors. So steel yourself, and remember there can be no bravery without madness. The old road will take you to hell, but in that gaping abyss, we will find our redemption.
Okay, so we just saw the introduction to our campaign. Real quick before we give any commentary on it. So we're within the old road. With the stagecoach destroyed and the caretaker gone, you will have to make the journey to the hamlet on foot. Alright. So in here we're gonna have some tutorials about map navigation. I myself, as mentioned, it's not the first time I play this, so I'm already familiar with all these controls. But just to give like a little recapitulation, so essentially the plot line of the game is that there used to be this family which was very rich and owned a property called the estate. And essentially the family was very rich and all that. And at the very end of the bloodline exists someone whom we only know as the ancestor, which became obsessed with seeking knowledge, which drove him into finding forbidden knowledge within his manor in the form of a secret dungeon located within or below the province, you could say. He unfortunately unleashed powers beyond his comprehension and essentially cursed the land to live under very horrible circumstances. He himself sent us a letter telling us we are a long lost inheritor of his wealth and riches, and he asks us to come and rid the world of the darkest dungeon. So we do just that. These two playable characters that we see here, these are not us. So us, the player, are technically like an invisible third party that we hire mercenaries, whom hires mercenaries to pretty much come and do everything that's needed to do. These two characters are Dismas and Reynald. You always start the game with these two, and I need to make sure
have run up these lanes.
Both of them
To the side path.
remain alive, because there's an achievement about beating the game with both of them.
An ambush. Send these vermin a message. The rightful owner has returned, and their kind is no longer welcome.
Alright, so we're gonna engage in combat. So the combat in this game is turn-based, and it's also position-based. So first of all, turn-based, it's pretty straightforward. We're gonna engage in an action here. But also it's position-based. Both opposing teams, which is our team on the left and the enemy team on the right, will essentially be formed in a row of 4 individuals. So we have like position 1, position 2 would be a third position here if we had someone, and a fourth one over here if we had another one. Same on the opposite end. And each character will have 4 abilities of various effects, which can only be activated on a specific position within that formation, and will only affect a specific position on the enemy's formation. So for example, Reynald here, his first attack, Smite, only works on position 1 and 2, and will only affect position 1 and 2. So we'll go ahead and kill this bandit and get some loot. Over here, down here is our inventory, limited space, we need to manage it properly. Okay, in here we have found an interactable, which are called curious. We can just interact with them, or we can use an item to potentially gain an additional effect out of this place. Right now we don't have anything to use other than money, so I'm just gonna check it. Okay, we found some more money.
Unchecked. There is much to be found in forgotten places.
We're gonna move into the next room.
Dispatch this thug in brutal fashion, that all may hear of your arrival.
Okay, that was very unfortunate. So essentially we were surprised, which means that the enemy took the first turn. Surprise also shuffles the characters, which, as now you know, will affect the abilities they can use. So for example, Dismas here, since he's now in the first position, can no longer use his pistol or his grape shot blast. We can fix that by moving him, but we'll be sacrificing, that would be the action we take right now. We would be sacrificing attacking. So instead, I'm just gonna use Open Vein, which has a chance of causing bleed into this big guy. Alright, we put some bleed. We're gonna use Stunning Blow, because it has a 100% chance to stun. As you see here, this action over here called Self-Accusation has the ability to attack both the first and the second row or position in the enemy's ranks. The thing is that this boss grade enemy is considered a large entity and thus covers 2 spaces. So over here, technically we have position 1, position 2, and position 3. That's why we actually can't reach the man all the way on the back, the gunner. So we'll have to cut through the big guy first, based on the abilities we have, in order to reach the Fusilier. Okay, so I've already bleed this man. We could attack him again for some damage and to increase the bleed, like the turns of bleed. Not the bleed damage, but just the amount of turns that he will remain bleeding. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move back in order to gain access to my other attacks. Alright. We're gonna buff ourselves because we're at the front. Okay. As the game goes on, I'll keep explaining some more mechanics, but I definitely do not want to overwhelm everyone present, just effectively immediately. Because as with any well-made game, there's a lot of different systems that work cohesively to give us the final product. We're both bled for 3 turns, which is not good, but I'm sure we will endure. I will use Grape Shot again, because this guy only has 4 health. Actually, this would do... our damage is 3 to 5. This would do 75%. No, it would do 50% damage. So it would do between 1 and 3 at most damage, which means we cannot one-shot this guy with Grape Shot. So I think I'm just gonna commit and just kill him. This one move has an accuracy of 95, which is very likely that we'll hit. And there we go.
The bigger the beast, the greater the glory.
Okay, this is another very important thing about the Darkest Dungeons, which is that killing enemies actually leaves a corpse behind, which still occupies the space they had within the formation. So for example, now that this guy is dead, it wouldn't mean that this guy would move all the way in the front, but rather he would leave his corpse, and we need to just get rid of the corpse in order for this man to be pushed towards the front of the formation. That is important because, as we saw, different moves have different ranks in the formation that we can attack. So for example, Reynald here is incapable of attacking this enemy until we get rid of the corpse, so we'll focus on that. That corpse still had the bleed status effect, so that's why it destroyed itself when it came its turn. So we'll just proceed.
Their formation is broken.
Dismiss bestness.
Maintain the offensive.
Right, so we got some goodies, and we completed the quest. So as you can see here, when you complete the quest, you can just return home, or we can stick around to keep exploring. That's actually a very good question. I don't know. All I know is that the narrator used to be a radio host for a very long segment of his life. When he retired, he got approached by Red Hook, the people that made this game, and essentially became the very iconic narrator of Darkest Dungeons. And also, he unfortunately passed away, I believe, last year, if not 2 years ago, which shook the studio because this game has a sequel, Darkest Dungeons 2, and he is also the narrator of that game, which means he can no longer narrate more content for that game, and that game was it was still getting content updates. So essentially, it was left up to the wind to know, okay, is the game gonna stop producing content or what's gonna happen? And as of right now, as I understand it, they have stopped creating content, but they have confirmed they're now working on a new game. We don't know if that's Darkest Dungeons 3. We just know that they're making something new. We're gonna, if you do find out if he is Aldia from Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Scene, do let me know, because that'd be pretty ball. We chose to continue adventuring because there's a chest right here. I wanna check what he has. It's trapped, no. Alright. It's not. Okay. Checks out. So we are just gonna complete the quest. Give me goodies. Okay, we got money to our name. So one of the most interesting aspects of this game is that under normal circumstances, after every expedition, your heroes develop traits, which can include positive quirks or negative attributes. So for example, we're gonna discover that Reynald has hylomania, which means he's obsessed with material things. That can be translated to he might open interactables without our consent or other things. Dismas is a cove stranger. The cove is a type of dungeon, so now we know that he has a higher chance to scout within that dungeon type.
Welcome home.
Okay.
Such as it is. This squalid hamlet, these corrupted lands, they are yours now, and you are bound to them.
Perfect, so we have arrived to the state, which is the home base. Here we'll be doing all of our preparations, our upgrades, and our team management. Here it's the Crier. The Crier is a randomized event that happens every time we come back from an expedition. This time around we actually got extremely lucky because we got a free mercenary. This is a modded class, which is the Salamander. So we immediately have a new individual,
A marvel of technology.
without having to recruit them with money, if I remember correctly. Activity log, this is just what the things that have happened. We started in the hamlet. Reynald and Dismas are level 1. If you can see, our new recruit is level 0. And our first event was getting this free unit. Here there's the different quests that can be done. As you can see, there's a lot of content in this game. None of this extra should be well, none of this from Rooster Goals upwards should be like modded content. All this is vanilla, and all the ones over here are include class mods such as Gone Witch or Chaplain or whatever. So we're gonna go into our town. It's just showing us where we can get some information. First thing that we're gonna do or view is the stagecodes over here, which as you can see is where we recruit new heroes.
Women and men, soldiers and outlaws, fools and corpses. All will find their way to us now that the road is clear.
Okay, so essentially the stagecodes. Every time we come back from an expedition, we'll have a new roster of recruits that we can take. Right now we have a plague doctor.
What better laboratory than the blood-soaked battlefield?
And a Bestal. Every facility, the stagecoach included, can be upgraded to include, for example, more heroes per reroll, or increase our hero limit, or increase the base level of the heroes that come to the stagecoach. At the moment, all the heroes we're gonna get are gonna be level 0, and we need to power them up through dungeoning. Other facilities that there are include... Oh, that's just asking us to go in an expedition. We're not gonna do that yet. We have the Ancestors' Memories.
In time, you will know the tragic extent of my failings.
Which essentially is just a replay of cutscenes and things that we'll unlock as we progress through the game. DLC included. We have a Nomad Wagon.
Trinkets and charms, gathered from all the forgotten corners of the earth.
This merchant sells items that are called trinkets. These are equipables. All of our characters can equip up to 2 trinkets, which will heavily modify the way said character can operate. So this is very important. That being said, trinkets are very expensive, so it's usually best to just find them through while you explore. All that is randomized, so if we get lucky, that'd be great. If we don't, that's the way the game goes. You can also upgrade it to have more trinkets per reroll, or decrease the cost of the trinkets themselves, so we can just get like sales. These over here, we're not really gonna worry about it too much because this is part of the Color of Menace DLC, so this won't come into play until much later on, to the point that I have actually never engaged with it because I've never reached the DLC. That is sort of like a misleading statement. The DLCs are immediately accessible. That being said, if we go into the DLC, we're gonna get absolutely murdered. So I've postponed it and never engaged with it because I've never felt like it was the time. Perhaps in this playthrough, we will. We also have the graveyard.
Most will end up here, covered in the poisoned earth, awaiting merciful oblivion.
The graveyard is essentially just a recollection of all the heroes that have died under our command. So if any of our beloved characters dies, they'll be recorded in the graveyard. All the other facilities are currently closed, so we cannot engage with them. For the meantime, we're gonna proceed on an expedition.
A mecca of madness and morbidity. Your work begins.
Okay, so everything here that you see is the map of available dungeons. Right here in the corner, this is the estate, this is where our home base, and we would go out to set expedition on the different maps of different dungeon types. The farmstead is the Color of Madness DLC. The courtyard is the I forgot the name, but that's also DLC, and everything else is part of vanilla. So we have the Ruins dungeon, the Warrens, the Wealth, the Cove, and the Darkest dungeon. So essentially, the gameplay loop would be explore dungeons, level up until we feel prepared enough to go to the Darkest dungeons. The Darkest dungeon is available from the get-go. We would just get absolutely demolished if we paid it a visit. So the only expedition we have available at the moment is the Warrens, so that's where we're gonna go. Actually, you can see here the modifiers of the expedition. The type of mission is short, that essentially modifies the length of the dungeon. It's level 1. The goal is to explore 90% of the rooms. This can change depending on just randomized objectives. And this particular run would grant us a base reward of 3,000 gold, 4 crests, and a trinket, the protection stone. We'll talk about those when we get them. So first we're gonna set up our team composition. In my mind, I essentially want to ensure everyone is a high level. So what I'm gonna do is definitely bring all the level 3s, or my bad, all the level 0, the 3 people that are level 0. And in here we have the status page of our character. What we are gonna focus on at the moment is their abilities, because that will dictate where is the best spot for us to put them in the formation. So the Vestal here, we can see that are best at the very back or in the 3rd position, and they sort of deal with a little bit of everyone. If we put them in either of those, this first ability is not accessible to us, but we will have access to 2 types of heals, which is very good. So I'm gonna put her on number 3 for the moment. Our Plague Doctor, it seems that their best position is in fact number 3, which means that all 4 abilities overlap in that position. That's why the circle is at most full. You can actually see this one is the emptiest. It has like just a speck of light. This one is slightly bigger, this one is much bigger, and this one is completely full. So 1 ability works in this position, 2 work on this position, 3 abilities work on this position, and all abilities work here. So this one is the best spot for our character. Which means we're gonna move our Vestal to number 4, we're gonna keep the Plague Doctor number 3. This character over here, the modded class, the Salamander, we can see that the abilities that they have are more of a frontliner. We already have positions number 3 and 4 occupied, which means this grappling claw will not be getting much use. But we can see that in the first position we have an ability, so I think that will be the best spot for them. Now we'll just pick either Reynald or Dismas. I think based on our loadout we need more front characters, so I'm gonna bring Reynald to have a more balanced party. We're gonna go ahead and provision.
The cost of preparedness, measured now in gold,
If you can
Later.
bear with me.
in blood.
So essentially in here, this is our final preparation page where we can buy some gear to bring into our expedition. Rule of thumb for me, I always bring a couple of torches, always bring a couple of shovels, I'll bring 2 keys, I'll bring some bandages to stop bleeding, some anti-venom to stop poisoning, I'll bring another bandage just in case, and the most important in a lot of people's opinion, food. Our characters will go hungry within the dungeon, and that can cause problems if we do not keep it in check. So I think this is a pretty decent loadout. If we do not use something, it will be sold back to the provision, but at a reduced cost. So we do want to make sure that either we use everything that we buy, or we do not overspend and keep things that are not used by the end. So we're gonna go like this. We're gonna embark. So we're going into the ruins, our first expeditions. Okay, so we commence. So I'm gonna open up the map. We can see the layout of this dungeon. So we're gonna start down here. We're gonna move to the next room. Okay, we find a curio. I'm gonna interact with it. This one should have torches.
Glittering
Yes.
gold, trinkets and baubles, paid for in blood.
Let's move into the new room. You can change to the map to see. First encounter. Alright, so skeletons, or the bone rabble as they call them, we can see that they have a 0% chance to dodge. It means that all of our attacks should be landing. They have 1 speed, which means they're very slow. That would affect their placement in the turn rotation. So for the most part, all of our characters should go before the skeletons. And we can also see the resistances to the various status effects that we can deal to the enemy. We can see that skeletons have a 200% resistance to bleed, because of course they do. They are skeletons, they have no blood. So this skill, Lacerate, which does 100% bleed, would actually be rather futile because we won't be doing its main thing. So I'm not gonna bleed them. I'm going to instead do this Flame Gout because it would buff us. Just give us a damage buff. With our Plague Doctor, we can see that we can do either a bleed attack, which we know it won't work, or a blight attack, which is essentially poison. We can see the skeletons are not resistant whatsoever to blight, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna finish up this skeleton. It resisted blight, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let's see if we can, in fact,
Another one falls.
kill him, and we did. Okay, so we can actually see that our Reynald, the Crusader, has a 1 speed, which means they went after the skeleton, because that's how the game rolled out the placement. So I'm gonna stun him, because he's not that resistant to stun. And stunning essentially skips that character's turn. So I'm gonna throw Blight, hope that he gets blighted. It didn't, that's unfortunate, and we should finish him off with just some fire.
Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
Let's get some money, let's open
This
this.
expedition at least promises success.
So, as mentioned, we can interact with curios just naturally, or we can use objects to improve their rewards, let's say. I'm gonna use this key. Unfortunately, it didn't have any effect. That is sad. Let's just open it.
A fortune.
Got an extra
waiting
shovel.
to be
That's
spent.
nice. We got some onyx. This essentially is a sellable item. It itself is worth 500. So for example, between these two, the onyx would be worth more. So that's something to keep in mind. We're gonna move on to the next room because remember, the objective is to explore 90% of rooms. So this
Even
rubble,
the cold stone seems bent on
we need a
preventing
shovel to go
passage.
through it. In there, I showcased what would happen if I didn't use the shovel. I showcased this by accident, actually. So yeah, essentially by not using a shovel, we would lose some health because the characters would have to claw through it with their hands. And they also suffered stress. So stress is a mechanic that we'll be very acquainted to. And here we're gonna throw this... Oh, light bomb and miss. We're gonna heal the whole party. So essentially, the further character stays within the dungeon, the more stress they would get. And if this stress reaches a threshold, which you can see right here, something might happen. This character enemy type, the cultist, as you can see in their skills, they're exclusively stress based, which makes them a priority target for us, because if we don't take care of them, they will, for lack of a better saying, stress us the fuck out. Not having a good time with the accuracy, it seems. We're good. We're fine. Okay. So essentially, she tried an ability which wouldn't do any damage, but what it would do is it would pull my character from the position they are, which would disrupt the abilities I have. So that is an example of why positioning is very important. Fortunately, we resisted said ability. So we're gonna keep on attacking the front rows.
Continue the onslaught.
Reynald MVP gets a double kill. In here, even though we know skeletons do not bleed, the fact that they're now dead, they're corpses, the bleed status effect would help us clear it out. So we're gonna do this double attack to precisely clear those corpses and make the third character more accessible for us to get rid of. I'm actually gonna use this stun grenade to prevent her from, if it had landed, to prevent her from using her stress incantation. Right, so I'm gonna knife her and dodge. My godness. Petromol, you suck. Let's keep our health up. Keep getting stressed out. Stress is in 87 out of 200. Let's try to bleed her. She's bleeded. So she'll take 2 damage every next 3 turns. So if we can get her health down to 2, she'll die on her next turn. So we're gonna actually try to stun her to see if we can skip her turn. We unfortunately did not. Now that she's on the first position, we can actually use this ability, which has a 100% stun base, and it would shuffle both my character and her character. So ideally this should do a lot of damage.
Confidence surges
Good
as
enough.
the enemy crumbles.
As you can see, it shuffled my character back. So if I were to want to use it again, I would need to manually spend their turn or the first person's turn to shuffle them back into position. So now that we're realigned, we can proceed.
Terrors may indeed stalk these shadows, but yonder, a glint of gold.
So now it's the perfect time to explain the light or torch mechanic. So up here we have a light meter, which is replenished with torches or certain abilities. Essentially, the brighter the light in the dungeon, the safer it is for our characters, but the worse loot we get. And the darker it is, the more dangerous the monsters are, but the way better loot we get. As you can see, it's pitch black. Our characters would get 4 times as stressed. Monsters would be 3 times as accurate and do 3 times damage. Monsters are 4 times as likely to do criticals. Our characters are 3 times as likely to get surprised, which means when we start combat, we get shuffled and the enemy begins. But we are 3 times as likely, or the loot we get is 3 times as valuable, and we're 3 times as likely to get criticals. So, considering that all of our guys are in fairly decent shape, I'm gonna keep it in total darkness to see if we can squeeze in some good loot. Okay. So what we just witnessed was Reynald's one of his traits, which is kleptomania. So I didn't press anything. He just decided that the loot that was there, that's his, and he essentially stole everything from us. These quirks, they can be removed or locked down if you want to keep them, but essentially this list should be around like 5 traits each, good quirks and bad quirks. So it's a game of, and so long as that list is not complete, it would keep rotating through bad quirks or good quirks. So it is a game of deciding, give and take. Okay, maybe I don't mind my character having hylomania, but I do mind him being a kleptomaniac. So that's one of the quirks I would try to get rid of when we have the time, because we essentially lose some loot because just like that. Alright. 2 cultists. I'll just push. Who's getting pushed? Reynald. Okay. So Reynald is right now useless because all his abilities are on the front. As you can see, he does nothing. So we'll have to spend some turns shuffling him forward. I'm gonna use the pile bunker to try and lower these guys' HP. Okay. I'm gonna use bleed to bleed him. See if we can get a... We did not get a proc. I'm gonna heal everyone. Whip slash, that's just damage based. Reynald. The problem here is that both of our frontliners are all the way back. So we'll be in a loop of trying to push them forward. So we'll also have to waste turns with our back characters moving them back. So this is not a good position whatsoever. I'm gonna move him forward. Okay, I'm gonna finish off this enemy. That's one less threat to take care of. I'm gonna spend this turn moving backwards. That's a lot of damage. Okay, so now that we are in this position, we should be able to start attacking. Please get stunned. He resisted stun. In here, this character cannot do anything. We're gonna... Are any of these... Yes, so the fire and the claw are usable on the 3rd position. Where I'm going with this is I'm just gonna move my Vestalt instead of moving all the way to Reynald, because in this position they're already capable of attacking. So we're gonna focus on that. Okay, we resisted the pull. We're gonna try and finish off the skeleton. Nice.
Abomination cleansed from our lands.
Okay, so at this point we can only attack the front 2 corpses, so we're gonna spend this time moving our Plague Doctor back. So back here we could do a heal cast for the whole party, which is a lower HP heal, or we can focus on healing one character for a higher amount. So that's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna heal our Plague Doctor. We're gonna do the exact same. We're gonna heal our Plague Doctor again. We're gonna do the Lacerate to try to destroy the front 2 corpses. We're gonna throw this blight bomb to the skeleton because the corpse of the cultist is about to break itself, so it's not gonna do much if we throw that bomb to that guy. Nice. So we destroy the corpses through the status effects and move the cultist forward. As you might have noticed, it became a little brighter, and that is because Renault's fourth ability actually increases the torch amount by 24%. The torch is based on a 100% basis, so we were at 0, it increased to 24, and then the turn passed and it decreased by 10%. So we're gonna try and bleed this woman. We got a crit, that's nice. She should be dead in the next turn, because she's gonna bleed out. So we're gonna focus on healing everyone instead. Let's just finish her off.
Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
Okay, we get some goodies, some crests.
Ornaments.
We'll see what those do in a moment.
Ordered. Lovingly admired.
What is one? Do this again. There we go. Yeah, so in here with this button we can return the party to the original position we brought them in. So this is a bigger chest, an heirloom chest. I'm gonna try using a key. And we get even more rewards out of it. So that's awesome. I'm gonna move this here, do some inventory management. That's fine. Okay, so we move on forward.
Darkness holds dominion.
Ooh, we fell in a trap.
Black as
That's
death.
Okay. Okay, so we have our first status effect. Like stressed effect. Yeah. So our Gestalt is afflicted. Essentially, when stress reaches the 100 margin, our characters can become afflicted. Afflictions vary. In the case of our Gestalt, she became irrational. What does that mean? It means that essentially she might start acting on her own and doing actions that essentially do not make sense. Like attacking the enemy that she shouldn't, or healing someone that doesn't need healing, stuff like that. Being stressed is very dangerous. Okay, no one here. Gonna explore down here. We fall into another trap.
Ambushed by foul inventions.
So traps themselves are actually invisible. And the way you would learn of them is through a mechanic called scouting. I don't think we can see here. Essentially, whenever we reach a room, there's a chance that any of our characters might scout the map ahead, and that would essentially reveal traps, and then each particular character has a chance to disarm traps. In our case, the best trap disarmer would be the Plague Doctor. Anyone actually, they all have about 20% chance to disarm a trap if we were able to detect it. Both of those prior traps we did not detect, and that's why we suffered the consequences. So in here, I'm thinking about topping the healer up, because if we are out of a healer, that's gonna be a big downfall for us. I'm gonna buff myself, my damage, by harming the ranged guy. We're gonna throw this grenade to the ranged guy, see if we can afflict him. Resist it. Okay. Okay. So our irrational healer is spouting nonsense, and that stressed our Plague Doctor out. So our Plague Doctor became paranoid. Let's wait for the enemy's turn to finish. Our healer is being irrational and stressing out our team.
Survival is a
Okay.
tenuous proposition in this sprawling.
So it's not going well. So essentially, whenever your health reaches 0, you don't actually die. You enter something that's called Death's Door, in which there's a percentage chance for you to be killed on the next attack. So in theory, you could stay in 0 HP and survive an infinite amount of hits if the dice rolls in your favor. But being on Death's Door makes you more prone to being stressed, makes you more prone to critical hits, which are more prone to kill you. In that case, our Plague Doctor got to Death's Door by getting all their HP drained, and then the next attack just rolled poorly and killed them. So now we are permanently down a party member for the rest of the dungeon. Because in the darkest dungeons, death is permanent. If you die, you're dead. And all the progress that you might have on said character is gone. So we're gonna try to make the most out of the situation we have. Let's attack this first guy. That's critical. That's good. Instant kill. As you might have noticed, that guy did not leave a corpse, and that's because we killed him with a critical. That's a property of criticals, besides doing more damage. We're gonna do double damage to these front guys. We're doing relatively well. Let's see how this goes.
Ringing ears, blurred vision.
Okay.
The end approaches.
Have another character at Death's Door. And they also reached the stress threshold. They became abusive. That essentially means that take actions that harm the team rather than the enemy. For example, she just spouted a line of dialogue that further stressed our team members. If you had noticed, our irrational healer would stress out a single character, but our abusive team member now is personally attacking all of the party.
The ground
But that's fine.
quakes.
We injured. And there she goes again. What a fantastic team of rascals.
Hellish horrors,
In Reynald we trust.
brought low and driven into the mud.
So I'm gonna actually feed these guys some food. Manually feeding does not reset hunger. Hunger itself is a random event. Consuming food simply just grants a little bit of HP. So I wanted her to stop being on Death's Door, which we no longer are. That being said, we are, for this run, permanently debuffed by the fact that this character almost died. So essentially their accuracy is lower, their damage is lower, their speed is lower, and they're more stressed by the fact that they almost died. So we're gonna go ahead and do this. I know myself that if we pour holy water on the holy fountain, it will have an effect. So that gave us a super heal, and it also cured our stress. So that little icon that you see, that is reducing our stress. Whereas the iron halo, that's what this icon is called, is significant. It's the symbol for stress. So we're fine, we're doing good. We're gonna go back to this room that we have already been, simply because these 4 tiles we have not been through, so there could be some loot in there. And yes, there was. But there goes Reynald because he's a fucking kleptomaniac. God damn it. It's fine, it's fine. We're good. We're gonna cast our torches because we're gonna go through spaces that we have already been. So there's no point in our characters getting stressed throughout the journey. We can actually see that a trap just spawned. And it's right there. So as we can see, this is the tutorial for traps. It mentions what I mentioned about scouting that will reveal the traps, or themselves just being revealed if we get a little bit close. So all these guys. So now that the salamander is abusive, their trap disarm has also lowered by 15%. So we're gonna use Reynald by selecting him to disarm the trap. And we succeed. Nice. I'm pretty certain that the higher the light level, the more probable it is for traps to get discovered too. So that also affects the way this goes. Everything is just a game of numbers and about manipulating said numbers. Please don't, you motherfucker. Divine Crusader, my ass. I think we can hear my cat. I sincerely apologize. He is just built different. Okay, so we procced a random hunger chance. As mentioned, this is completely random. And essentially we are mandated to feed our characters one point of food. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so we just completed the quest because that was 90% of the rooms or higher. But we can keep adventuring because there's still another room that we haven't been to. As you saw, we actually also procced a scouting that is based on the character's stats, and every time we enter a room, as mentioned, it just rolls the dice. This time we happen to win, per se. This is the last room, so I'm gonna pop my last shovel, my last torch, my bad. And here we have another structure that needs shoveling, so we're gonna do that.
A full pack often attracts unwanted attention.
Okay, so there's a hardy battle ahead of us. Okay, Reynald's resolve is tested. And he's also abusive. God damn it. You guys should not be friends. You bring the worst out of each other. Okay, so we're gonna, simply by the fact that our firepower is lacking, I'm gonna focus the Basalt on keeping the party alive.
The wounds of war can be healed.
We're gonna fire this guy. Great damage. That's gonna even up our damage even further. And the next turn we're gonna do the stake drive on the main guy to see if we can kill him. We're suffering a lot of damage. He's stressing out the party. We're gonna buff ourselves, because that's gonna give us some damage negation. It also applies the target status, which essentially, as you can see, it just makes it so our character will be targeted more often. And the fact that their defense is buffed, that's like the whole gist of the ability. So we're gonna keep healing. Now that we have the damage buff, we're gonna try to see if we can one-shot this guy. And we miss. We're awesome. My goodness. Okay, so we're gonna try to stun. So this guy, hero damage 3 to 7. I'm gonna try to stun. Can I see? Nope. Okay, I'm gonna stun the guy in the back. That worked. Okay, that should, yeah. So that ability moved us and our character stunned, so that's not good. We're gonna have to skip a turn. What is limit? Hard attack. Okay, so essentially, as you might have seen at the beginning, stress is based on a 200 point meter. When it reaches 100 points, we suffer the affliction, but when it reaches 200 points, we suffer a heart attack. Essentially what that means is our HP is instantly lowered to 0, and if our HP was already 0, we instantly die. So yeah, as mentioned, it's the body's limit. Right now no one is at that threshold, but they're well on their way too. So we need to avoid, or in this case, just finish the fight before we reach that threshold. Because otherwise our characters are gonna start dropping like flies. At this point, based on the HP that all of these kids have, I'm gonna focus on healing the Bastard. Please don't get stunned or moved. We did get moved and stunned. Amazing. But that's fine-ish, because now we don't have to spend a turn moving the Salamander forward. Okay. Now everyone is sort of average on HP. I'm gonna heal the party. Not very effective.
Sedated.
Okay. We're gonna do the Cell's accusation because it will affect both of the guys on the front. Nice, we killed the second guy, so that's less damage that we're gonna be taking overall. We're gonna... Please stop saying shit, brother. Okay, we're gonna use the stake driver on this guy, hope that he kills him. Not, but it's done. That's good. So they skip turn. We see that the corpse in the back just rotted on itself, which is good. We're gonna heal the party. We got a crit heal, that's nice. So at this rate, we should be able to win everything unless we get like the shittiest rolls possible. So in this position, I'm gonna use the fire on the guy in the back because their HP is just at the full. We're gonna use Smite because it does more damage against Unholy, so we're gonna just use that to finish off this man. So now things are starting to look up for us. We're gonna heal. Oof. Okay.
Injury and
At this rate, we should just focus on finishing the fight, so we're gonna start committing to damage. Reynald cannot attack the guys on the third row or backwards, so we're gonna try to destroy the corpses. We got one, so Reynald is now useful. We're gonna start trying to attack, use this, which does 15% more damage against Unholy, from which this undead is. We also buffed ourselves on damage and accuracy, which is good. Okay, you're good. The stress is rising, but we should be able to finish this before it reaches the max. There we go. GG. We lost the Plague Doctor, but let's hope it was worth it. Okay, so we got a trinket, our first trinket. So we got a trinket for Crusader. You can see right there, this can only be equipped by Crusader. Which we're gonna do, if it allows me. Can I move this? Nope. Okay, I'll do it in a bit. Oh, I'm dumb. It's over here. Yeah, so this will give us more melee damage, but it will lower the healing, in this case, our healing skills. That doesn't mean that our healer will heal them less. That would be healing received. But rather, Crusader has some skills that do heal. So by having this, it means we're committing this character. Well, not committing, but like we're focusing this character into being a damage dealer. So we're just gonna grab everything else. We're gonna see if we can open this chest. Please don't be a fucking kleptomaniac. And we get the goodies inside. So now we're just gonna bail the fuck out of here. Okay, so our total gold collected across the things that we did not use, which was all these food and shovels and whatnot, all the gems that we found, all the money that we found, it was 8,500 gold, which is good. Now the heirlooms, all the heirlooms we found were 8 busts, 1 portrait, 0 deeds, and 4 crits. We'll talk about what those are in just a moment. So obviously our Plague Doctor died, which is a shame, but more fools will replace their spot. We see that our Salamander leveled up, but they didn't get any traits. Our Crusader got some experience, just didn't level up. And our Bestalt did level up. So what traits did we get? Okay, so our Crusader is now has a phobia against the unholy, which are things like skeletons, which means our Crusader would be less effective in the ruins, because that's the main enemy type in the ruins. That being said, they have a 10% more accuracy and 5% critical against the unholy. So bro is deadly afraid of them, but he'll fucking get rid of them like tissue papers. Then our Bestalt is a nervous bleeder, which means that if she gets the bleeding status effect, she'll be less accurate.
The tents are pitched, banners fly, and the corpse wagons stand at the ready.
Alright.
The circus has come to town.
So essentially, quirks themselves, specifically negative quirks, if they are not treated, over time they will become locked. What that means is that it will be more costly to get them removed. So ideally, if you find a quirk that you really don't want, for example the kleptomania, you want to treat it as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll become much more expensive down the line. For example, the reason why we got that is because our Salamander, their Torn Rotator, means that their melee skills do 5% less damage. Which, personally, I don't think that's that big of a deal. The fact that this is now, like, you can say locked, or like at a higher degree, means that as we get more negative quirks, that one specifically will not be rotated out. So what I'm getting at is that I can live with this negative quirk, so I'll leave it be. And then any others, like Blight or Bleed Resist, if that becomes too big of a deal, I'll remove it. If I find out that hey, it's not that big of a deal, I'll leave it to take the place of much worse negative quirks. Okay, so we completed our first foray into the ruins, and we'll proceed. So we saw that. Where can I see it again? Ancestral memories.
In time,
No.
you will know the tragic extent of my failings.
Over here. Yeah, so the crier was telling us that the Butcher's Circus has opened up. As mentioned at the beginning of the stream, this is PvP. We're not really gonna engage on it. It's an arena, but it does come with the effect that if we were to use it, 10 of the stress of our heroes would be recovered. As you can see, our heroes have returned, but they're still stressed. So we need to deal with their stress. We're gonna go into the circus,
A traveling bacchanal,
just so we can take a little look at it.
a
Very
divorced
pretty
contest of
art.
survival.
We're gonna go back to
Butcher's
the Hamlet.
circus is all these things.
So how do we deal with stress? There's different facilities within our hub world, such as the tavern,
Fresh kegs,
where we can
cards,
dispose
curtains,
or
rooms,
like leave
promise of
behind
solace
our
to the
heroes
weary and
for the
broken
next
alike.
run, in order to make them be relieved of their burdens. So we're gonna move. We can actually, let's see. Let's first see what characters we got in Stagecoach. We got 2 new characters. A Rampart, this is a modded class. We're gonna grab him. And a Twilight Knight, this is another modded class. I'm gonna grab him. So classes are gonna come back and forth every run. So at this stage, there's 2 things we could do. We could leave behind our guys and pay a fee to lower the stress. Or if we find that too much a burden to pay, we could just kick them out of the party, dismiss them, and let them worry about their own issues. I think the roles we got on these characters are not that bad, so I am gonna invest into getting them healed, essentially. So I'm gonna leave our Salamander at the bar. And one of the possible quirks that we can get
The cobwebs have been dusted.
is
the
that
clues set
of which
straight.
prevents our character from using a specific treatment method. For example, as you might have noticed in the tavern, we can drink at the bar, we could gamble at the gambling hall, or we can visit certain floozies at the brothel. Here, for example, Dismas, one of his quirks is that he's known as a cheat, which means he cannot be relieved at the gambling hall. So we can put him everywhere but the gambling hall. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Reynald is God-fearing, which means he can only relieve stress by praying at the abbey, which means we can't heal Reynald because the spot is taken by the caretaker. So the caretaker is the guy that takes care of the hub world, and he will randomly go to one of the 6 different possible places for stress relief. So in this case, we got a bad roll and he took the praying hall, so Reynald is fucked for the foreseeable future. On the opposite end are Vestat, that is a flagellant, meaning she can only relieve her stress by flagellating herself. Can take the spot, and so she will. Go get whipped. So we're in a precarious spot where we have 3 characters that are not stressed, but we have 1 that is. We can take Renault with us on the next expedition, but it would be a very risky thing to do. We can see that the Color of Madness DLC has activated now that we first the first dungeon. We're not gonna do that, because that's suicidal. But we have more options in the ruins to play around. The issue that I'm seeing as a more seasoned player of this game is the fact that we are out, or our healer is decommissioned. So we have no reliable way of healing, which is rather problematic for our characters and this next run. So first, we're gonna see the available level types. So we have a short. All these, by its blue color, you can tell that it's level 1, an apprentice. But as you may notice, this circle is just a plain circle. But this one over here and the remaining ones have spikes. That defines the length of the dungeon. So the empty circle, that's a short dungeon, about the same amount of rooms that the previous one. But this one's a medium length dungeon, which means it'll be much longer. For example, this one that the goal is complete 100% of room battles, it will take much longer to complete that objective. Considering that we're out of a healer, I'm not even gonna bother seeing the medium length dungeons because we would simply not make it. So we're gonna go into the short dungeon and cross our fingers we don't die. So let's see. Our Twilight Knight can only work in the first 2 positions. So in the first 2 positions they go. Our Highwayman, Dismas, he works best in the middle 2 positions. I'm gonna put him in position number 3. Because Reynald can only work in the first 2 positions, I find it a little bit discouraging to bring him, considering he's already very stressed. So he would start this run at 100 stress and already abusive, which is not good. In fact, I think I'm gonna skip, and we're gonna make a risky maneuver and do this run with 3 heroes only, which is just not recommended. Possible, but not recommended. We're gonna bring our Rampart, which has a bunch of different skills. That being said, half of their skills only work on the first 2 spots, so we're gonna keep him in spot number 2. We're gonna go like this. Danger awaits the unprepared. Do you wish to continue without a full contingent? Yes, we're gonna continue because otherwise it would cost Reynald's life. And as mentioned at the beginning, there's an achievement about bringing Dismas and Reynald all the way to the end, and I really want to get that. We're gonna bring some food, some torches. I'm gonna bring. So within the ruin, we're going to the ruins. Within the ruins, the skeletons would do bleed damage at most, so we know we don't really need anti-venom. I know that some traps actually would poison us, so I'll bring just one, just in case. I'll bring some keys for chest, and some shovels, and maybe a holy water just in case. Medicinal herbs. These are mostly to interact with Furies. But we're gonna go this way. We're gonna go back and see the hero panel. Okay, this is just more instructions on things that we already know. The statuses of a hero. And we can worry about that when we get there. So this is the layout of the map. That is actually pretty ass, in my opinion. Why is that? Because we're starting in an intersection, which means that we have to essentially go down a path and then walk it back in order to get onto the rest of the dungeon. Considering this side is shorter, that's where I'll go first. Immediately we get into a fight. Okay. Okay, so our character is immediately bled. We can use a bandage, which I will, because we are out of a healer, which means we really want to keep the most amount of HP we have. Okay, so we have a multitude of abilities. This class in particular is rather complex, and I'm still learning it. But to keep it simple, we'll commence a brief explanation of the class. Essentially, we have a baseline of attacks, and depending on which attack we get, the character will enter sort of like a combat state that would unlock other attacks. As you can see, all the moves are unlocked, but we only have access to 4. So say if we were to do this excessive force attack, you can see it enters termination protocols. It would turn this character into kind of like a attack mode, let's go, and we will get a different set of attacks instead. Otherwise we're gonna, what looks like he's called Bastion. Sure does. I really like the model, like the whole art for this character. That's what drove me into it. We're gonna do this action because it says it's a free action. So we're gonna guard that ally. What guarding does is that if this character gets hit, the rampart would get the damage instead. So we're gonna essentially debuff the target. Well, we're gonna just start attacking because we really need to get rid of characters ASAP. Gonna punch that dude. Got a little bit of stress. It's fine. We're gonna use the grapple shot because that's gonna hit all 3 enemies. So we're gonna slowly but surely whittle down their HP. Okay, so the Twilight Knight, their attacks, essentially these, other than being a pretty standard attack, it has a higher crit chance and it seems to heal stress. So that's something to consider. This attack attacks multiple enemies and it pushes them back, but it only attacks position number 2 and 3, of which there is 2, so that could be a good attack to do right now. This one is a single target, but it will stun enemies. It doesn't do that much damage, but so the focus is stunning. And this one is a buff that will make us a marked target, but it will also give us more dodge. We're gonna do the dual attack to see if we can get rid of them. We flip their positions, which is good because the undead man is a stress dealer, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, we're fine. We're gonna heal that bleeding because we definitely cannot afford it. We're going to... So if you notice here, this attack has a minus 100% damage modifier, which means that its point is essentially like extra effects, which would be that we would break a guard. So for example, if an enemy guarded another the way we are, we would break through that status effect. We're gonna essentially do this one because of the stun. That's what's calling to me. So we're gonna hit this guy to stun him, which we did. That's nice. So we're gonna skip his turn just like that. As you see, when they get stunned, you see that they get buffed. The buff they're getting is that they have stun resistance. This is to prevent essentially just chain stunning enemies, which to be fair would be a pretty OP strategy. I'm going to go ahead and do a grapple shot because most likely that's gonna kill this guy. In fact, it is definitely gonna kill him because he was 1 HP.
Surges as the enemy crumbles.
We're gonna do... This guy has 3 HP, this one has 4. We're gonna do stun on this man. Nice, we killed him. Who's next? Okay, we're gonna... What is the accuracy? Okay, so this one is 95% accuracy. We're gonna just straight up finish the fight. Thank you. Okay, good. So unfortunately, we already are at half health with this character. We're gonna read these books with this lady. Okay, nothing happened. Open the backpack. Probably gonna contain food. It didn't. It contained holy water, money, and a journal piece. So a journal is just flavored text. We can see the following. Journal of Darius the Highwayman. This is page number 1 out of 6. Day 1. Rare are the travelers on the road at this autumn, and rather than starve, I pressed my last coin into the hand of one who dealt in rumors and shadows. Ravens carried cryptic notes that there was a person or persons who was pledging coin for services best left unmentioned in a hamlet I had never heard of. I am packing to leave immediately. This is, we can see, is the second journal page out of 29 total. Now that we have read it, we can just safely discard it. We're gonna press forward into the room. Okay. Let's get to it. I'm gonna grapple shot to do damage to the most amount of enemies. And take a little bit of damage. Gonna take a little bit of stress. I'm gonna do the whirlwind attack with the Twilight Knight, precisely to lower down these two fellers. With this man, I'm gonna do the excessive force, which doesn't do damage. I'm actually gonna first do the guard. Actually, I'll refrain from doing the guard based on the HP that this character has, because the last thing we want is to lose a character, because we're already under-prepared as we are. I'm gonna do this to enter the termination protocols, which I know are more damage based. So I'm gonna mark that woman. I'm gonna do the whirlwind to attack the two middle guys. Eldritch pull to resist it. We're gonna keep peppering them with pellets. Okay, so now that we have marked this lady, as mentioned previously, on our side, if we were to be marked, that would attract attacks from enemies. But on the flip side, if we mark an enemy, that means certain attacks have this modifier, which is they would do extra damage against marks. So the battle cycle would be mark an enemy and then use a mark attack against them, and that would cause immense damage, such as this. Haha. The drawback would be that you would need to first invest into marking them before you can use said attack. Oof, that's rough. Considering that we're already bleeding, that's gonna leave a dent. Because we're already out of bandages, so that's not good whatsoever. We're gonna whirlwind to kill the first guy, the second dodge, that sucks. But we flip them, because that's one of the properties of the whirlwind, it's to shuffle, knockback 1. Now that these guys are the way they are, I'm gonna focus on starting to kill individual targets. If we bleed him, he's dead. Okay, so that guy's dead because the bleed will kill him on his next turn. Nice. Just like that. When an enemy dies of status effect, they also would not leave a corpse. So that's the 3 ways enemies will not leave a corpse. Through bleed, through blight, or through a critical. So we're gonna essentially, if we use this attack, it would likely push this guy back, which is not something we want. I'm gonna use this because it would damage all of the individuals, even though it would just do like 75% damage. So let's do that. That actually destroyed the corpses. It did enough damage to do so. In here, we're gonna use the strike stun because the last thing we want is for this guy to keep damaging us. Nice. Okay, so essentially the battle's won. Just like that.
Give them no quarter.
Okay. But that really took a toll on us. So we're gonna feed this lady some food just so she doesn't die in the immediate future. We're gonna move forward. At this rate, oh, that is not gonna help us. Absolutely not. At this rate, we might need to abandon the mission. Simply because otherwise our characters are just gonna die. And if we have a party wipe, we'll lose all of our inventory, so I'd rather retreat in time. Let's use this character, and I believe we could use a key. Nope. We'll try a medicine herb. Oh, that did something. Okay, so we cleaned it and we got some goodies out of it.
Baubles, paid for in blood.
Okay, there's nothing here, so we now have to do the trek back. Characters are hungry, so we have enough for another hunger proc, which means that 2 of these would not work if we get a 3rd hunger proc. So it's best to just use him now. This one. Gonna pop a torch because we really can't afford low light at the moment. Gonna move forward. We got very unlucky and immediately got a 2nd hunger proc. If we were to get another hunger, we would not be able to satisfy it, which means our characters would get very stressed and they would lose health. We're gonna check these. Oh no, unsettling passages. Okay, so nothing happened out of it. That's fine. So
Even
we're gonna shovel that.
Stone seems bent on preventing passage.
Gonna go through here. No combat. Okay, so we're gonna go to this room instead. Okay, so this is gonna have some torches. We're just gonna straight up light it. Oh, an extra key. That's good. Okay, combat. We got surprised. That's not good. It means the enemy is gonna start. Okay, so our character had enough speed, as you can see here, to surpass all these and even surpass the surprise check. So we're gonna pepper them down. We're gonna whirlwind to try and kill these 2 guys. We did, and we should try to kill this last guy. This one has no damage modifier. This one is above. This one has a damage modifier. This one, okay. So our only real option is this one, and we did it. Flawless. Get fucked.
Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
We're gonna check the bookshelf. Nothing interesting. This room, there's gonna be combat. Okay. We're gonna continue the same strategy. Pepper them in mass. Eldritch pull. Let's see if we get pulled. We resisted. That's good. That's gonna be stressful. Yeah. That might do a bleed. Sure did. Okay, so this guy is definitely in danger. We're gonna do the whirlwind, hope and kill one of the two. That's absolutely dog water. So the first guy we missed, so our accuracy didn't match this guy, and this one dodged. In fact, this guy has a lot of dodge. So we're gonna mark the guy on the back to try and one-shot her with our other skill. It's gonna hurt. It's fine. That's gonna be stressful, and we might get afflicted. Sure did. Super critical.
The mind cannot hope to withstand.
So I'm pretty sure this is a modded status effect, most likely exclusive to this guy. I'm not entirely sure what he's gonna do. Pepper them en masse. They're pretty killable at the moment. More stress, it's not good. That also lowered the torch to the lowest. If we survive this fight, it might be the best choice to just retreat.
Injury and despondence set the stage for heroism.
Okay, so this guy attacked our Twilight Knight and stunned them. That was part of the problem of the super critical. So let's try and we did not one-shot her, which is unfortunate. And our Twilight Knight died of blood loss. So shit is hitting the fan rather quickly. We get oh my goodness.
Terrible vistas
Okay.
of emptiness reveal themselves.
We're gonna pepper them. Fuck! Okay. This one is bleeding, which is not good. This guy just keeps tanking the death's door, but he just got a heart attack, so he's likely gonna die. Yeah.
More dust,
Alright.
ashes, more disappointment.
Yeah, dodge it. This must has a lot of dodge and a lot of speed, so there's a slim chance we get to live through this. Emphasis on slim. Very slim. Holy shit, can I please play? Oh my goodness.
Self-preservation is paramount at any cost.
Okay, so we're gonna light that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna... So, considering that we're bleeding, we're as good as dead. So I'm gonna just try to retreat from combat. And we succeeded. That's insane. We're gonna abandon.
May yet be won.
We saved this mess by the skin of our teeth.
Ignorance of your enemy and of yourself will invariably lead to defeat.
That went south very quickly. Bad healer. That's fine because highwaymen have no killing skills.
Though long years may seek to separate them, action and consequence
Yeah,
will
that was the best course of
invariably
action, I'm gonna be honest.
have their dreadful reunion.
Okay, so the crier tells us of madding wine, clouds of mosquitoes. This means the other DLC is now active, which we will not engage with. So we got a jester. We're gonna grab him. We got a musketeer. Musketeer has healing skills, which is good. And Dismas and Renault definitely need to relax. Renault couldn't relax last time because the caretaker was here, but now we can use it. So this is the party that we will use next time around. I think these two runs are a good spot to leave it as it is. So, if anything, I hope you were having fun watching this playthrough, non-blind modded playthrough of the Darkest Dungeon. I'm not entirely sure if we're gonna be playing this on a daily basis. I may do like a different game one day and then back to Darkest Dungeons the other. But essentially the overarching plan for the streams is keep ourselves distracted, because in 9 days we'll be getting the Crimson Desert released, which is a game that I'm expecting with a lot of anticipation, and that we will most likely be streaming. I don't know if in its entirety, but definitely will be having it being played here. Without further ado, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun, and we'll see you in the darkest dungeon. Have a good one.